So Barbara, it's 6:30, but I do see a few people that are still signing in, so you may want to give it a couple seconds.
Okay. Will do. See, there's 21 people here.
Are Ed Hartzog and Gregory Morris here?
Yes, no, Ed's joining us in about an hour.
And Greg is here.
Greg is here. Good evening, everybody.
I was going to announce that in a minute when I'll start, and then I'll hand it over to you.
So before we get started, just to get this out of the way, welcome if this is your first time at one of our CBA meetings. You'll notice that you are all muted and unable to unmute yourselves on your own. The way that we will engage participation during the meeting is through the use of the raise hand feature that you can find in the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. You want to make sure that you hit the raise hand button, not the thumbs up or the wave, and only hit it once, because if you hit it multiple times, you'll lower your hand. If you're calling in on the phone, you'll need to hit *9 to raise your hand. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once one of the co-chairs calls on you to be unmuted. The chat is only for technical support with Zoom. If you're having a problem with the software, you can chat either Max or myself, and we can help you work through that difficulty. But it's not to share your comments or concerns. The co-chairs will not see it. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you'll need to use the participants button to find the raise hand. You'll find the participants button at the bottom of your screen as well. And finally, if you're using your video and you try to raise your hand with just your human hand, we will probably miss it and we will not see it. So use the raise hand feature that you find at the bottom of your screen under the reactions button. And I think after that spiel, you guys are good to go whenever you want to start.
Okay, hi, I'm Barbara Chockey, co-chair of the Housing Committee. I'd like to welcome everybody. This is a joint meeting between the Housing Committee and the Zoning and Development Committee. On behalf of myself, Gregory Morris, and Ed Herzog, who will be joining us at about 7:30, I want to welcome everybody. I'm really going to now turn it over to the chairs of the Zoning and Development Committee, Anthony Cohn and Elizabeth Ashby, and Elaine Walsh, the former co-chair of the Zoning Committee, because they did a lot of work on this issue. They're the most familiar with it, so it's all yours.
Okay, somebody has to talk first. Second, thank you, Barbara. I'm Anthony Cohn, co-chair of the Zoning and Development Committee, and also here are Elizabeth Ashby, who is co-chair, and Elaine Walsh, co-chair emeritus. So this is what we're here to talk about tonight specifically, and there are sort of targeted zoning and development meetings sprinkled throughout the month of March, as it turns out. But this is a kind of urgent situation, and I don't know how familiar others are about it. But there's an amendment to the multiple dwelling law that has been included in the executive budget for fiscal year 2022. And it would add a section to multiple dwelling law that allows certain automatic zoning overrides and will supersede all local zoning laws, resolutions, ordinances, or regulations. The main features of this part of the budget, Part L is actually what it is that it has a built-in sunset of December 31st, 2026. And it basically has two big parts, which would allow for conversions of Class B multiple dwellings, which are hotels of fewer than 150 rooms And those hotels could be converted without reference to their legality under the city zoning or anything else. They could be converted to housing with all of 20% affordable units within them, or supportive housing. And the key, one of the keys to this is that developer-funded affordable units or supportive housing units could be put in another part of the city, any other part of the city. So for instance, if you have a small hotel in Manhattan and you want to convert it to luxury housing, you can do that. And you can take the 20% of the units, luxury units that you're creating, make them affordable units and put them somewhere else. The same thing is true of the supportive housing. And the strangest thing about it, about this particular portion, or maybe it's not strange to everyone, is that it applies to Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan south of 110th Street and north of Chambers Street. In other words, if you have a small hotel south of Chambers Street or north of 110th Street, you're out of luck. The second part of this is the same type of conversion, but in this case of Class B and C office buildings. And it'll work the same way. I don't know how many people are actually aware of the differences among Class A, Class B, and Class C office buildings. But a Class A office building commands the highest rents, a Class B office building less, and C less than that. And it's based on the kinds of amenities that they provide to each of their tenants. So anyway, you have a Class B and a Class C or Class C office building, and you can make the same kinds of conversions, and you can also offload the affordable portion to another portion of the city, any other portion of the city, not even within the same borough. But this amendment only applies to Manhattan, north of 14th Street and south of 59th Street, 60th Street, technically. So it is meant to allow conversion of Class B and Class C office buildings, which have big vacancies, to some kind of residential use. No variance will be required to obtain a certificate of occupancy for these new uses. And so as a kind of brief explanation, I think that's good. I don't know who wants to speak to this issue right now.
Well, I think that the thing, we're not as affected as other areas by this, but I think that the thing that scares me to death is the principle of having something decided that we have no input, no influence. The zoning law is disregarded in text. They can throw out the zoning law here. We have no word on it at all. And that goes for everybody in the city. So that's my big fear. And perhaps the other co-chairs have something to say, then I think we should go to the public and hear what they have to say.
Oh, well, I think we should unmute Elaine, who has also thought about this quite a lot.
This is very disturbing that this use of the governor's office to include it in his budget, for which most people are not familiar, is an insult to the communities, not only those that are affected, but all communities. What it does is it violates all of the zoning regulations, because there are none. 2, what it does is there's no ULUP review, which is a procedure that is done within zoning when there are changes. Okay. And 3rd, it not only upends home rule, but it really allows the governor's office, because I don't think it's the legislature who has approved or disapproved this at this point, total control of taking commercial space and wanting to convert it, quote unquote, for the premise of providing homeless services or other residential services, for which we already have a glut on the market, not for the homeless, but for the others. The other thing is the affordable housing component does not stay in your community. We do have in our area hotels smaller than 150. We do have commercial space in our community, but the affordable that would go with the governor's budget doesn't happen in our community, which again says our CBA doesn't want affordable, which is not true. We again are seeing the legislators and the developers manipulate the affordable housing and put them in other boroughs that have said to us time and time again, we have enough affordable. We say we want affordable. So this is an insult to us not to allow us to have the economic diversity that we need in our neighborhood. This is unacceptable. I am totally opposed to what he's doing. And I would suggest that we ask that this part of his budget be taken out. It is a insult. The other piece is, behind this is the real estate board and the hotel industry, because they are financially having difficulty. But at the same time, what they're asking is, if this occurs, we want, meaning the real estate industry and the hotel industry, to be subsidized to renovate, and on top of it, reinstitute 421A certificates. Our community suffers with this action. What we want to see is affordability in our neighborhood, not in other communities. The other thing is the money that is put aside for the affordability goes into what I call the black box, which means it's in the state and we don't know who's controlling it. Therefore, we have no say. So on the backs of our community, we are supporting something that does not benefit the full community, but it does not fulfill or meet our needs. Thank you.
This is Barbara Chalky. We have always, or at least most of us, have voted against any housing that's supposed to be affordable, but not in our community. We always have said, if they build housing that includes affordable units, the units have to be in our community. We're on record for that.
Yes, but this law basically would make it possible to circumvent our wishes.
I know.
And I think one of the questions someone asked a while ago, and then as people queue up, was, well, if there's all this office space available and all of these office developers who are interested, maybe Adam could speak to this later, why are they, why is there so much strain to put in, or so much effort made to create millions of square feet of so-called Class A office space? And in a way, converting Class B and Class C office space to residential only artificially makes the total amount of office space smaller. Anyway, let's see. Since no members of the public have signed in to speak yet, let's hear from Michelle.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. So I have some questions about this. So this is a law, but it's a law that is being introduced by being part of the budget. In other words, I have a few mechanical questions here. This is not a law that's going to the legislature by itself. This is just a law that'll be introduced in the budget, and by passing the budget, therefore you're passing the law. Is that how this is working?
Yes.
Yes.
So if that's the case, since the budget is only good for a certain amount of time, does this mean that this law is only good for the amount of time for which the budget is being proposed?
No, it sunsets in December 31st, 2026. So it's, well,
So
let's
it's
say
from
5.5
now?
years from
So
now.
it's from
Yeah,
now
it
until,
goes into the multiple dwelling law.
That's right.
okay, so it's from now until 2026, and then it expires.
Correct.
Um,
But any permits, just to sort of add another little touch, any permits that have been applied for before the end of December of 2026 will be allowed to go through.
Okay,
So effectively, it'll have a life a couple of years longer than that.
and so this is applying to all private property? These are no government-owned buildings.
No, yes, correct. This is private buildings.
It's all private property. And then if a conversion happens, it then becomes subsidized by whom? Because somebody said it's subsidized and the 421A program kicks in. So how does that happen? We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay, fine. This seems very bizarre. It also seems like a way of raising the value of Class A office buildings.
Yes.
In other words, so there's dual thing. I mean, you're converting B and C properties going to make Class A properties that much more valuable. And are you saying that anybody who applies to do this, because it's not subject to any zoning regulations, variances, ULURP, approval by the community, that anybody who applies, any private real estate owner who applies to do this for one of his buildings can do it as a matter of course? Is that true? There's no approval process by anybody?
That's what it appears. That's as it appears.
So on the face of it, it seems like a horrendous idea. So then the next question is, what's our recourse? As a board, we can do a resolution, but I mean, we need something a little more powerful than that, I would suspect. What is our real recourse as a body? And do we know how the borough president feels about this and how our council members feel about this? Or do they not have any say? Because if this is coming from the state, does this completely wipe out the input from any city entity?
Yes, they oppose it. I would hope less impotently than we do. And I believe that the electeds at the state level have asked as many as possible to make as strong statements as they can. We've already, Russell's already prepared a letter with us. Other community boards have already, because it worked better with their cycle, have already issued resolutions against this. CB5, which would be doubly hit, of course, as a midtown district, has already weighed in strongly against it. And I think the idea, Michelle, is to have a broad opposition that can go to our legislators to then push on this and defeat it in that.
When do they vote
Yes,
on the
it's the
budget?
state legislature that will defeat this if it's defeated. So that,
That's right.
as Anthony said, we've got to
Yes,
concentrate on telling them that this is a terrible idea, and if you want to be elected rat catcher in the future, you better oppose it.
when is this up for a vote? When is the vote?
The vote on the budget, I believe, is the beginning of April. So time is
So we don't have much time.
March. Okay, the end of
Oh,
March.
Even
March is
worse.
the time when we should be discussing it, or they should be discussing
Even
it.
worse.
Yeah.
Will the vote be before our full board meeting?
No,
Okay,
Elaine is saying no.
okay, all right.
She's been
thank
better
you.
at the calendar.
This sounds horrendous. This sounds like a really bad idea. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Let's
And
Oh,
I
and-
think what we can do is write a letter now, because a resolution would have to go to the board. And I think if we write a very strong letter on behalf of the board, that's the most we can do now. We can probably pass a resolution at the full board, but
Yes.
that's too late.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. Next we have Alita.
You do have one member of the public. I don't know if you
Oh,
want
we do?
Yeah, Andrew Ravish here.
Oh, there he
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Oh,
in the
okay,
middle.
Andrew. I'm sorry, Alita, if that's all right with you. Nodding. Yes, okay.
Hey everyone,
Andrew.
thank you for letting me speak. I'm just wondering if this bill or this proposed amendment relates to a bill that Corey Johnson introduced yesterday that Friends of the Upper East Side discussed. It's called Intro 2186, and it talks about a new zoning process that would frankly make it more of a top-down process where neighborhoods have 3 choices to choose from in terms of zoning, and then they give their feedback. And then it's up to the city council and the mayor to decide, and they can take public feedback into consideration, but they don't have to. And there seems to be a really aggressive real estate push for control, wrestling it away from the public, the small amount of control that we have. So I'm wondering what we can do both on a citywide and a statewide basis, because it's clear that more and more of these power grabs are coming. I mean, Corey Johnson is no longer running for the mayor position, but he's running for controller. So he's going to have his hands on the budget. Everyone can still supply testimony on this behalf up until Friday, the 26th. But with new elections happening and citywide efforts and council member spots being made available, I'm wondering what citywide approach we could push, because it's clear that more and more of these efforts are going to be put forth in the name of affordable housing. But as we already know, this area lost over 14,000 units of affordable housing. And this this decades-long pro-growth strategy isn't working for expanding affordable housing. It's just a game for the super rich to have luxury apartments that were 25% empty before the pandemic and are even more empty now.
Yes, Andrew, that particular bill proposal, what Corey Johnson calls planning together, is actually the topic of our March 4th meeting, which would be Thursday next. And we will have, and we'll definitely have people who are extremely well versed in it at that meeting. And then we are having, and Russell can nod if this is true, we're having a land use meeting of the whole on, I guess, the 10th.
think it's the 11th. It's the 10th or the 11th. Yeah, but that's right. That's correct.
Whatever it is, that the Wednesday, second Wednesday. And then,
The 10th. Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Russell.
No, you're right. It's the 10th. That's exactly right.
And then the point is that at that meeting, we'll be discussing this proposal specifically. And I believe that there will be someone from city planning to speak on it. And there will also definitely be people who are interested in speaking against it. But at least we'll get a kind of fuller idea of what it is. And the idea of the meeting on the 4th was so that we would have some kind of prior knowledge and understanding going into the land use meeting on the 10th. Okay. Did that answer
Anthony,
the question sort of, Andrew?
Yeah, and that's really great because I think there's definitely an interaction both on a local level and a state level. I also just want to bring up the idea that I think environmental regulations can supersede over development or zoning regulations. So that's just another tact to try.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. Let's see, where are we now? Okay, now we can go to Alita.
And just Anthony, to clarify, you'll have somebody from Council Land Use Division who will be there
Oh, okay,
at the
fine.
land use meeting.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, a few points. First, my understanding when something is in the governor's budget is that it is very hard to vote against it because there's no line item vetoes. That information I gathered last year or the year before when we were talking about electric bikes, which allowing them and changing the rules was statewide and was achieved by including it in the budget. Second of all, the governor has his eyes on New York City because a lot of you might have heard about it, but what he wants to do around Penn Station without regard to zoning around there is part and parcel of the same thing, which is to override any local and citywide interest in land use and have it determined up in Albany. That's a problem. Third, if the governor has so much money that he can afford to subsidize developers, then let him give the city enough money to acquire more land and build its own affordable housing with a not-for-profit builder. Fourth, I attended a program yesterday put on by, it was moderated by City and State. It was on small business, but they had representatives from the Office of Counsel to the Mayor who talked about how hotels are not interested in the idea of converting into apartments or affordable housing because they don't want to give up their hotels, and any conversion would take 10, 20, or they suggested even 30 years to bring back to hotels. And the city doesn't want to believe, or the hotel owners don't want to believe, that the hotels will be unused. In fact, they'd rather believe that the city will again be a vital tourist destination requiring the use of hotels. So that was the point of view of the tourist industry. This is a horrible bill on so many levels that we have to find a way to defeat it, but having it in the budget makes it, again, from what I understand, really difficult. And I don't know how to overcome that, but there must be something we could do, because this idea of the governor swooping in and making land use decisions despite city zoning and city preferences, even top down, and community preferences bottom up, is on the verge of, if not actually disastrous. So thank you.
We can ask people to
Thank
vote
you.
against the budget.
Yeah,
Yes,
we should start writing letters about that. Thank you,
Yeah,
Barbara.
Our state senator, Liz Kruger, has voted against the budget many times.
Yeah, I think she might have been the one who told me how difficult it is to get everyone else to vote
I know.
against the
She should
budget.
get everybody else to follow her.
Thank you.
okay, and Adam is next, who actually knows something about real estate.
I pretend to know something about real estate. I'm sure none of you, everyone here is not too surprised to hear. I'm generally in favor of this. I think it kills many birds with one stone. We talk to these Class B and C landlords every day, and they are dying. Tenants are leaving, and any tenants they can get to stay, the tenants know how bad the situation is. They're willing to pay rents just enough above the bare minimum where these operators can keep their buildings out of the hands of their lenders. It's very bad. There's a lot of these small B and C buildings. You don't want to have the banks owning 20, 30 million feet of Class B and C office space in Midtown Manhattan. I think that wouldn't be good for the coming resurgence and, when everyone does go back to work, you don't want to have to turn over these buildings to banks. And, going back to even before when I was in the community board, everyone always talked about affordable housing, affordable housing. We have all these ways of building affordable housing. This is one of them, and yet we find another way to reject it. And I don't understand. I think this makes a lot of sense to me. I'm a little wary about the structure of it and that. So do you know, Anthony, is this going to be a GPP, or is it just going to be individual state zoning overrides with each property? I hope they wouldn't try to put the whole Midtown in like a GPP.
No, it's individual overrides.
Okay, because that would be overstepping it. And I think we need to be creative. In the end, the market will speak, because if you start converting buildings and there's no schools, there's no services, people are not going to want to live there. So the market will speak to how this actually plays out on a long-term basis. But I don't understand why we're so up in arms against creating affordable housing, and why landlords are going to lose their buildings.
I think, Adam, part of the trouble with this is the lack of any oversight, because in most of the C districts in the city, you are in fact allowed to have housing. So any of these office buildings, all of the Class B and C office buildings in Midtown could be converted to housing right now. And if they're not, it's not because of the barriers to zoning. So I'm suspicious that it's creating a solution to something that isn't a problem.
But in many cases, and we've dealt with this with clients who are looking to convert office to residential, is that you often have to, the biggest problem is you have to shave off the back of the building in order to create enough rear yard. And that can be very expensive, doing the whole structure of the building, moving elevators, moving MEP, moving everything. This, it sounds like you can override that a little bit. There's not going to be the same requirements and,
yes, no more requirements.
Incredibly expensive.
But no more requirements for light and air. Very nice.
The market will speak in the end, I think, when it comes to this.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd like to point out before we move on that anything that is useful or that we would want in any bill like this independently can be originated in the city and reflect the needs of the communities. The problem, leaving aside the rights and wrongs and what one thinks of the rights and wrongs of the specifics of this proposal, the thing that scares me to death is that we have lost the community approval process. It is to be dictated to us how we do it. And I think that is the scare. Anything that's in there, the city can originate. So if this is right, it's the wrong way to do it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. So I think that is my fear and why I am very much opposed to this.
Okay, I'm going to skip you for a minute, Elaine, and go to Russell, and then we'll come back.
Thank you. So in response to Adam's point, I think that, sort of in the abstract, conceptually, maybe, it would be good to try and get some kind of affordable housing out of some kind of a conversion or something along those lines. I think part of the problem here is that the affordable component really isn't adequate for a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, you have the fact that it could be built elsewhere, which doesn't do anything for community board aid or community district aid. And second of all, the fact that you're talking about only a 20% affordability requirement just seems way too low to me. It just doesn't seem, I would think basically we could do a lot better and should be trying to do a lot better. And I think the fact that, the property owners are having some difficulties now, frankly, cuts against, settling for 20% and suggests that we could be getting a lot more affordable housing out of it. So that's, I think, a big part of why I don't think this proposal is a good idea. So I also just wanted to bring up the idea of just discussing kind of what the next steps are going to be. So I think as has been discussed, in terms of the timing and everything like that, I think basically, as it's been said, we can do a resolution, and I think it makes sense to do a resolution and a letter. I mean, basically you have a resolution, which is sort of more forceful and authoritative in terms of what the board's position is, but given the timing, we really can't rely solely on a resolution because, even though the budget doesn't get approved until March, I know Elaine and others have pointed out that basically as a practical matter, we need to get out there as quickly as we can to make sure that we are, that our views are in the conversation, and there's going to be negotiations over what the budget's going to look like. And we want to make sure that we get our word out about that. So I think the current plan has been, and Anthony had done a draft of a letter, and there are a bunch of us who've been working on revising it, basically to, I think make the points that Anthony pointed out, and that others have echoed, that essentially we don't like this because it takes basically 3 points. It takes, it takes the community board out of the process of approving zoning changes, and does away with ULURP for these, conversions, which we don't like. Number 2 is the inadequacy of the affordability, both because it doesn't have to be built in our district and because 20% is too low. And then the third point is basically that there's just something fishy going on with the geographic limitations to it. And we don't really understand what that's about, but we just, we don't like that. So that's pretty much the idea behind the letter. And I think that's kind of what we're thinking. And if folks have commentary on that, I think it would be useful to hear that, because we want to try and get the letter out, I think basically tomorrow, based on hearing everybody's input. So that's sort of where things stand in terms of what the plan is.
Thank you, Russell. I didn't mention the geography, and you're right, because it's something that bugged me. There's lots of Class B and Class C office space in Brooklyn, in what are the edges of extremely fashionable neighborhoods, and it seems a shame that they are exempted from this wonderful benefit. Next, we have Elizabeth Rose.
Thank you.
There you are.
I wonder if there is a way of being constructive in the letter and in our response, because I do believe that there is a long-term significant office shift that is going to happen. I do believe that there should be alternate uses for big swaths of existing buildings that, the world is not coming back to their offices, even after the vaccinations. Because we've all learned that life is so much better when we don't have to commute, we save money, we have better qualities of life in many odd ways. So I would really love to see the letter be constructive, and a resolution be constructive and say, for us to support a large scale change like this, we would want the affordable housing to remain in the same neighborhood. We want the affordable housing to be 40% or whatever an appropriate number is. But those are the fundamental parameters that we should see. The reality is the city needs 25,000 units of new housing every year for a decade to address our housing situation. There is no way this private development is building 25,000 units a year that has any, reasonable percentage of affordable in it without something else happening. So how does we as a city get to 25,000 units a year of affordable housing? Quite honestly, something like this is one way to help get there. So let's say what we do want and what would make us support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure how we do that, but we'll figure it out. Rita, I believe, is next.
Marco is above.
Oh,
her on
sorry,
the list.
Rita. I'm sorry, Marco. Yes, Marco.
You can
was
give,
first.
you can read Rita.
Okay, thank you, Marco. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead, Rita.
I'm learning as I'm sitting here, though I know a lot about affordable housing. Does it appear to be prejudice against people who would be applying for this affordable housing that's being built, this 20%, which will fill not even a little hole, but by sending them out of the city? I mean, you can have somebody who lives in New York who needs affordable housing, and you could send them to Staten Island. That is one of the things. The other thing is that there was an article in the Times that people who got out of the city during the pandemic are having buyer's remorse, and they're moving back. And I have to buy. My son is in commercial real estate. As he said, Ma, we don't know what's going to happen yet. We can't assume that the offices are going to be empty. So there's a lot of open ends here that we could throw in. But I think that prejudice against lower class, lower income people is one of the effects of that bill.
Thank you, Rita. I think one of the things about this particular little piece of the budget is that because it's an amendment to the multiple dwelling law, it doesn't talk about how affordability is achieved, how affordability is determined. It speaks only to the notion that you don't have to get the notion that it consists of a series of zoning overrides in these particular large areas. To allow what would normally not be allowed, forget about the zoning, under the multiple dwelling law, which is a state law. And so as an architect, I've thought about this a fair amount, and the MDL sits in a kind of strange position vis-a-vis the city. It's sort of like zoning, and it's sort of like the building code. It's just about housing, and it is sometimes very much at odds with our local laws, but we have to pay attention to it. So, but it doesn't, again, the point I wanted to make was that this does not have any mechanism to actually achieve any of its goals. It just says that if you do this, you have a do whatever you want card.
We have something that just opened in our district on 94th Street by Mr. Fetner, who is the developer. There were 208 units built under the 421A, which means that 20% of the apartments have to be affordable. However, only 11 apartments are affordable, and that is between studios and only one bedroom, so that precludes families. That represents I'm rounding it out because it's 5.3% of the building. Did he get a full tax incentive for that? is, I'm looking at this as a license to steal. I hate it. I don't know what, I mean, I can't believe it. I can't believe that it's happening. Sorry.
That's okay. Now, Marco. I agree with you, Rita. Now, Marco.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. First of all, let me clarify some points. First of all, the lenders, the only thing that they don't want to hear in their portfolio is to have real estate, because they don't know the business of real estate. So since they don't know the real estate business, they run away completely. This is a nightmare for them, because it's another business. They make more easy money, just giving money and take more money, period. The other one is the different type of housing, A, B, and C. A exclusively is for residential. So whatever you have must be residential. Then you have the B and C, which is basically, that's the target of this proposal. So this proposal, I found that is wrong, and it's a camouflage for affordable housing. Affordable housing is a very big issue in the city. And somebody said, oh, we need 25,000 affordable built housing. Listen, millionaires, the only problem that they don't have is money. So therefore, to buy a house, they are no problem for them. So that demand, usually it covers very well the developers. The developers, they are master in that direction. They sell even the view, and they make millions of dollars for the view, which is free. But the millionaires, they have money and they spend. So I'm going to stay away from the luxury house. I'm going to go directly to the affordable housing. In the affordable housing, everything started because HPD statistics last year, they have 1.1 million of applications for the lottery program. That means that is the demand that the developers or the builders are unable to achieve. So the only people are responsible for that is the government. But the government is failing in any direction, failing from the point of producing affordable housing, failing to stop the demolition of affordable housing. And housing is very simple to understand from the point of economics. This is supply and demand. If the supply of housing is higher, the rents are cheap. There is the worst nightmare for the real estate business. But if the demand is higher, this is the happiness for the real estate, because the price is going higher and higher, and no income is available to pay the rent. And that is one of the vacancy rate in New York City is the 3.8. The normal vacancy rate for housing is between 5 to 6. It has to have some flexibility so people, they can move within the community. So the Upper East Side, the vacancy rate is 2.6. So that means there are serious crises. What we're talking right here is, in our community, we have approximately 79,000 households that are renters. From those, 52% they pay more than 30% for rent, and 23% they pay more than 50%. So those people are in the crisis to become probably homeless. And that is the other problem that we have, homeless. And this bill, what they try to say is 20% of 100,000 affordable units is just only a camouflage to say, let's go change now those hotels that they can build, they can put it luxury housing. And that is fine, nothing wrong. But the point is, they don't need to modify the multiple dwelling law, because multiple dwelling law override any regulations of the city, because this is the bulk of the process. So my point is, the idea is to try to gentrification by income. Yesterday, I was listening that the city planning, they are building successfully affordable housing in East New York. So basically, if we demolish right here, the affordable housing, they are ready to receive our residents, low-income families or middle-income families that can afford to go to East New York. So it creates basically a gentrification in our community, and that is wrong. Constantly, we are disappearing affordable housing, and they then increase the demand of affordable housing, which leads to have a more expensive apartments. And any income is impossible to cover the rent. So my point of view, this bill is wrong. It's just only for benefit of the real estate. It's not for resolving affordable housing at all. Because in order to resolve affordable housing, we're talking about in hundreds of thousands affordable units. So 20% is a joke. It's just only, usually the developers, they know how to avoid. Let me give you an example how they avoid. The development on York and 81st Street, he demolished 31 dwelling affordable units, and he built 33. So what we earn is just only 2 in the supply of affordable housing. So the point is, if they're gonna maintain this pattern in the Midtown, doing exactly the same, it's worthless. It's just only the target for the real estate, not to resolve the affordable housing. Remember, let me be very clear in that point. The millionaires, they don't have a problem of housing. They can buy and they can do whatever they want. The developers, they are master. They can produce affordable housing for them. That's not the issue. So therefore, they don't even need to to change the multiple dwelling law. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Now we have one more person, I think, who has not spoken, and then we can go back around to Elaine, Adam, and Alita. And so that Sherry, you're up.
Hi. Yeah, I noticed the list of people. Look, this was a proposal to deal with the pandemic. That's why it has a drop dead period of after 5 years. I've negotiated many affordable housing agreements, and 20% seems to be the number that when you look at the economics of it, when you get above more than 20%, a builder doesn't have the financial incentive to put in affordable housing. Now, this idea of that the affordable housing is not going to be built in the commercial space is because, as an incentive to the developers, they're going to want to put more market rate into those buildings, in our neighborhoods, and then they send the affordables out, to the hinterlands. This is a typical approach for developers. I oppose this because our zoning is being control is being taken away from us, and I think that's the overriding issue that us and the other community boards need to address. I saw an article that I distributed to some that the mayor, in principle, thinks it's a great idea to do something with the the empty commercial space, but even he agrees. He doesn't think that we're going to get any affordable housing out of this, and therefore is not supporting it. So I agree that we should send a letter out as quickly as we can, and then I'd like to see a resolution sponsored by both committees opposing this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And let's see, Elaine, there you
are. I agree with what Russell said. I want to respond to Michelle. What the developers are looking for is subsidy to convert the commercial space. They are also pushing to return the 421A certificates. This has devastated any of us here in the city. and it only benefits the developers. There's no tracking of where the affordable is or what they've done. But going back, this is a zoning issue. This is a position the governor is taking to once again take away home rule from the city. Yes, we need affordable, but it also said the money for the affordable is going to go to some state agency. It sounded like congestion pricing to me. Who's in charge of the dollars? Where are they going? All we know is it will not come to the neighborhoods such as us or CB5, etc. It's going to go to the other boroughs. This is not acceptable. I think we need to focus on, and I think a letter in many ways is almost stronger than a resolution, because at least they have to respond to a letter. I hope at least the state would. But that says it is a violation of home rule. We lose any control on zoning, and there's no EULA. These developers who may have empty space, I have to tell you, they got stockholders, they have built buildings, they've made money over time. It is now not for us to bail them out. We're not even bailing out our small businesses or other entities, including families at this point. So why this particular group should be given the privilege of converting and making money on it? They're not doing it for free. I've talked to people in the industry, particularly those who insure the commercial entities when they're developing. And they've said to me, you don't have to subsidize them. They'll build or convert because they want to and need to. They don't need our subsidy. And so I really hope in the letter that goes out, we deal with the 3 points that I mentioned, and that the affordability, I think, is a ruse. We never see the affordability. We have no, HPD does not keep a record. They're supposed to now, but I have yet to see what we gain. So I would like to see us move forward, opposing what the governor's doing and requesting it be removed from the budget. And yes, Alita, it's difficult, but you know, he may not be in such a great state right now. We got to get our state elected officials to oppose it. And the ones I've spoken to have asked us for a letter ASAP. The budget really ends the end of February, and they horse trade in March. So we got a clock ticking. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. All right, so we have three more people, Adam, Alita, and Michelle. So Adam.
Two points on affordability. One in response to Elaine. HPD does track the certificates. I use them professionally. You can see where the affordable unit was generated, whether it was used on site, the certificate, or if it was transferred off site. I'll find the URL and send it around to everyone. Second,
thank you.
In order to qualify for the tax abatements as currently structured, the Affordable New York Housing Program, also known as the old 421A, you have to build at least 25% affordable, and in most cases, 30% affordable if you want to qualify for the tax abatement. So it's all well and good for the state to say 20%, but if you go and convert and have 20%, you won't qualify for any of the tax abatement programs. So you are forced to do either 25 or 30% affordability. That's it.
Thank you, Adam. Alita.
Thank you. I agree that with Shari and Elaine, that I think we do have to focus on process, and that there is something aside from the merits or lack of merits that we need to be able to deal with it on a state level, that it's wrong to do this. But then I have questions about it too, because and I know that there's a difference between Class B and C buildings, but if there are not going to be people returning to work, then why are they talking about building a 1,600 foot tall building next to Grand Central Station? Why is the governor talking about his Penn Station elimination of rezoning and putting in super tall office buildings? So that doesn't make any sense. putting affordable housing into the boroughs just reinforces segregation and the potential discrimination and putting people of low incomes all together. What a city needs to thrive on is mixed economic opportunities throughout the city. So on the one hand, it's justification for the rezoning of, or the upzoning or whatever it is of NoHo Soho to put affordable housing in there, but somehow for this, it's not required. And they go into the boroughs where the land is cheaper, perhaps the construction costs are cheaper, perhaps the permit issues are different. It costs them much less. So the benefits are to the real estate industry. And while we need development, it needs to be reasonable development. And this bill, this proposal just smacks of yet another gift to developers, and it requires much, much more in-depth analysis before it could be supported. The repercussions of it, we don't know where the city is going. We don't know whether offices are coming back. We're trying to invigorate New York, aside from the Blood Center, as a life sciences institute area. So there are many potential opportunities for this, and putting affordable housing into the boroughs doesn't seem like one of them. It's just, we could start with process and then work into substance, but there are a lot of things really wrong with this bill. Thank you again.
Thank you, Alida. Okay, now Michelle, and it appears that Rita and Barbara would like to speak after that. So
Yeah.
Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. First of all, I don't think, what it appears to me is that this proposal has more to do with power than anything else.
Yes.
It introduces many new options that were not available to developers before. Because with all the new proposed office buildings for Midtown, it sort of contradicts itself that you need to convert, but yet you're building more. But no, we're not going to have enough commercial business to fill the existing commercial buildings. It's all contraindicated. It doesn't make any sense. To me, it's just a power grab, and we should focus on that. We shouldn't give up anything. When it comes to affordability, we're talking about the 421A. I've said this many times when those proposals came to us. In order to get an apartment and to get the tax abatement, you only have to show that you qualify for that affordable apartment in the first application. And then you could live there for 25 years and nobody checks you or your income, again, contrary to like the Mitchell-Lama, where I believe every couple of years income is checked, so that if you got into it, you qualified initially, you have to continue to qualify. My understanding, and those that have come, those proposals for 421As that have come before us before, that is not the case. Now, many times people take these as starter apartments because, in fact, they do qualify. But then their status changes over the years. They make more money, become more successful, whatever the situation is. And yet they can live in these apartments forever. So to me, even the 421A is not a good affordable housing program unless it had, checking on people's qualifications every 3 years, or whatever would be decided. So I would be very, very cautious about this. And also with the overbuilding of office space or making it available, it's like originally when the Twin Towers were built, it wiped out the need for office space all over the city. There was such a glut of office space that all the rents came way, way down. And I think that could conceivably happen here, but I don't think that's really where this is. I think this is about power. And I just don't think we should relinquish any of it. And in the bill that we're going to be discussing at the subsequent meetings, it's all about relinquishing power and relinquishing any kind of oversight. So we have to be very careful, and we shouldn't give an inch on this one to the extent that we can be effective.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's see. Elizabeth, were you about to say something?
No.
No? Okay. We have, oh, go ahead.
One thing I would like to point out is I don't want to sound all that cynical, but almost every bad proposal comes with the purpose of providing affordable housing. And I think that they're trying to make it hard to fight bad ideas because they're under the flagship. They may not work, but they're said to provide affordable housing. So I don't think we should buy that one.
Very wise comment. All right, so we have Rita again, then Barbara, and it looks as though Elizabeth Rose, and Gail Barron.
I just wanted to say that in Mitchell-Lama, you have to be recertified every year. And if your income goes up, you have to pay 30% of your adjusted gross income. You don't have to move. That's number one. Number two, does anybody think about the story that went on about the development down in Manhattan, that's really having a very hard time? Why do I forget about this? It's it's a hotel, it's affordable housing, it's stores. Neiman Marcus went out of business, declared bankruptcy, and they lost that as a anchor store. Well, I don't know why. Do you think that precipitated that is Mr. Ross from Related? And he must be a very good friend of everybody. And the other thing, to Adam Wald's point about 20% with 421A, how did they just get a 421A and only have 5.3%? So I don't know.
Adam is as stumped as the rest of us. Okay, Barbara, you wanted
Can we review the draft letter?
That was an extension. Likely that was an extension of a 421A program that had previously expired. So Fettner built that building in the 1990s, and he built it under the old 421A, and you're allowed to extend your program, and you get half the benefits if you continue to operate X number of units under a certain affordability. So that's why it's not a new building. It's been there for 20 years, 22 years, 23 years. So that's why, because it's an extension of an old program. That's the answer.
Okay, I think you called me. Can we review the draft letter?
Yes.
I think we should go and look at the draft letter.
Can
That's
we
the
get
direction
that?
we're going to, and we got to get something out this month, February.
Yes. Is there a way we can, Will, maybe? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, you'd like me to show the letter?
If you could.
Yeah, give me 1 second to get it pulled up.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's going to take me a second, so just you guys feel free to talk.
Discuss among ourselves. Perhaps actually, since Gail has not spoken out loud tonight, perhaps we could call on Gail.
I'll just unmute. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Given all the points that have already been made in opposition, I'd like to actually put a motion on the floor that we send a very strong letter. We review it before we send it, where we look at all the points that Russell has made, Elaine, and others, but basically saying that we oppose Article 7, Part L, that we would like our elected officials to come out with very strong opposition, and that we would like the governor to withdraw this from the state budget.
The only thing, we can't wait to the full board meeting to pass the.
No, it's just
I'm
us.
saying a letter. I'm saying the motion, not for a resolution, but for the letter, because I think from what Russell and Anthony have indicated, literally, if we do the right crafting, it could be sent out tomorrow. And I agree, the sooner we get it out, the better.
Okay.
Okay, and I believe Marco raised his hand as a kind of, as a second. Maybe not. Or he just thought it was a good idea.
We get a thumbs up for a second from somebody, visual or otherwise. Okay, Marco, thanks. Got it.
Thank you, Marco. Okay, now let's see if we can make this big enough to read.
Oh, yeah, I can help with that.
Okay, I don't know if we have to read this out loud. I think we can all read silently together. Oh, lots of hands up. Is everybody sort of far enough along that we can start talking? I can see most of you. You can nod. Okay. All right. Good. So let's start with. I guess we'll start at the top with Elizabeth Rose.
I was actually just going to comment in response to Michelle about the requirements for recertifying residents of affordable housing from the 421A program. She stated that there are no requirements. I actually interviewed for a job for one of the major developers to run the recertification team that was tasked with ensuring that residents in their affordable housing units continued to be eligible. Now, you could probably take the cynical view that their view was more that they wanted to kick people out than wanting to ensure they're serving the right people. But nevertheless, that job and that team existed, so there must be some requirements for ensuring continued eligibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Gail.
No, I'm still.
Oh, your
thinking.
hand. Oh, still thinking. Okay.
Oh, is this done?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just thinking what else should be added.
Would you like us to come back to you, Gail?
Please.
Yeah, we'll
thank
come
you.
back to her. Sherry, we'll work from the bottom up. No.
Just the first paragraph, it's just, I was just looking English-wise, the first paragraph is too long. It should be now under consideration, period. This provision allows for, you got one, just got a one long run-on sentence.
Oh, now under
There,
consideration.
if you're, I don't know, and I really wasn't ready to talk about places imperfect controls of the, with no controls whatsoever. I guess that makes a good point. I apologize. I really wasn't ready to.
Oh, okay. Never mind. But then we'll come back to you.
Other than the English, that caught me right away, but I haven't. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So maybe if everybody puts their hands down, and those who are ready to speak to the substance, oops, all the hands disappeared. Russell.
Thank you. So I'm going to have to drop at 8, and I'm hoping I'll be able to rejoin not too long afterward. But you know, either way, I'll get the rest of the feedback that we have on the letter and incorporate it. There were a couple things I wanted to say about the letter, and I should say I certainly welcome comments on cleaning up the prose. The first thing is, I think the resolution, I would say, doesn't need to necessarily call for a letter, because I think, you know, you can do a letter without a committee asking for it, and, you know, that's not going to go to the full board until later. The other thing is, just one thing for folks to be cognizant of is, you know, anytime we're sending letters, you know, they exist in a bit of a sort of gray area, because it allows us to take action more swiftly than the board can vote on something. But at the same time, I don't want to get too far ahead of the board in a letter that we send. And I think ultimately we'll have a resolution on this. And obviously it's, you know, as I've said and others, it's important to get our views out. But the point I'm making essentially is, you know, I think in crafting this letter and the revisions that I proposed to it, and I think the way it's currently drafted now, I think it's all consistent with previous positions that the board has taken on various issues, including the need for affordable housing in our district specifically, and, you know, a whole other host of things. I would just caution folks a little bit that once we're getting into sort of nitty gritty of how we feel about it, you know, I don't want to prejudge too much what it is that the full board is going to do and that kind of thing. I want to, you know, it's, you know, there's a lot of different kind of ways that we can go, I think, in terms of like, do we want an alternative proposal? You know, what would we want an alternative to be? Things of that nature. And I think that's, you know, I would say that once you're getting too far into the realm of what the alternatives are, I think, you know, you're potentially, you know, getting ahead of the board a little bit. And I don't know what the board is going to say, and I don't even know yet, obviously, what the committee is going to say. But, you know, I think the goal has been to sort of say things that we, you know we can say at this point, which is we certainly don't like this, and there are specific reasons why we don't like it, and we can express those. And I think in terms of, you know, beyond that, that's something that I want folks to be aware of.
Thank you, Russell. I agree, and I think that actually the letter is sort of immediate, and but I would hope that the joint committees would be able to agree that the full board should pass a resolution opposing this piece of the budget. And but we'll see. And it may be that the most efficient way, and I don't know how people feel about this, would be for everyone to send their comments to, you know, me and Elizabeth, Russell, Barbara, and others, all the co-chairs, and then we can sort of cobble them together.
Because 40 people can't be changing the letter. It's not going to work that way. If we will be,
that was sort of what I was saying politely, Barbara.
Yeah, we don't have to edit it live.
No, we're not going to edit it live.
Yeah, just send us line edits and we'll deal with it.
People want to make changes, they should do that, but we really should, you know, send the letter tomorrow.
Yes.
That's the plan.
Getting late. We can't, you know, resolution's fine, but we need to do the letter now because they're negotiating now the budget.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna do.
That's why we had the joint meeting tonight.
Yes, I think everyone agrees with that, Barbara. So let's do, I think we've all had an opportunity to look at this and think about what each other had said. Please send whatever comments you have to us so that we can get this thing out of here or wherever here is tomorrow. The larger question is whether anyone, whether there is a sense that a resolution from coming out of this meeting that would then be voted on, I suppose, on the 17th? At the full board meeting?
Technically, you could also vote at the 10th. I just,
Oh,
because it'll be a meeting of the whole.
okay. Thank you, Will. And I see Russell nodding, so it must be okay. And Sherry. And so I guess my question to all of us is, do we want to have a resolution in opposition in addition to this letter? In other words,
I think we need to get the letter done. And remember, Liz Kruger is chair of the Finance Committee of the Senate, so somebody should contact her tomorrow.
She's already been contacted.
Okay.
So,
And I think it might necessarily be removed because this is not a budget item. I think we might question what, its legitimacy in a budget bill.
We could send it. We can send it to the finance committee chairs of both houses. I mean, in addition to sending it to the governor, as well as the housing committee chairs of both houses. I think that's just
that makes sense.
I think in the assembly, isn't it Ways and Means in the assembly?
Well,
yeah.
Maybe.
Can I? Elaine worked on the letter and she has a hand up. Can I hear what Elaine has to say?
Sure. Wherever she is.
We've been asked to make sure the letter goes to Hasty and to Cousins. They need the letter, so they can move on it. It's not to the governor. He's not going to respond. It has to go to the legislature. And that's what I was told to do. So let's do it and be very strong about this. I mean, I think the one piece I'd put in is it has to be removed from the budget, period, and item. That's what they want.
Yeah.
But please, definitely Liz, I've communicated with them for quite a bit on this, and they're waiting for this. And Liz is in a prime position to move on this, but they want it to Hasty and Cousins.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the question now is where we go from here. Obviously, people will send comments on the letter as it stands. It will be edited and will go out tomorrow.
Good.
So next, is there any appetite this evening for a resolution from this meeting?
I have a concern about a resolution from this meeting. Somebody doesn't support us. They can look at the resolution and say, well, it didn't go to the full board. So I think we should wait to the full board meeting, the land use meeting.
No, we have to, but generally, I mean, I don't know, Barbara.
I think a little differently. We have the letter. I think the letter stands by itself. I'm concerned if somebody looks at a resolution, they can say, oh, it didn't go to the full board yet. Let's wait.
No.
That's just my opinion.
I don't know. We've generally done things in the zoning and development committee, where we have in fact crafted resolutions for the full board. Sherry is nodding. As is Valerie. And it would seem that is not an inappropriate use of our time after we leave here this evening to sit down and actually try and craft a resolution that the full board can approve either the 10th or the 17th.
I think Gail made a resolution, and I think we don't have to include the letter component of it.
Oh, okay, fine. So then we should vote on that resolution if anyone is interested in. Valerie, I believe, has called the question.
Second.
Yes, she has, as has Michelle. Michelle has seconded. No, she wants to say something. Okay. All right. More
So,
conversation.
So I'm going
Michelle.
to assume anybody who has their hand up right now wants to speak to the resolution before. Otherwise, please lower your hands. Michelle, I'm going to unmute you. Don't worry.
No. Yeah, Anthony, what I wanted to say is clarify a couple of things. Number one, that affirm what you said. We do not need a resolution that even mentions a letter. So to my mind, the letter is separate. We're doing the letter.
Yes.
We want to get it out in the morning. You're going to accept some commentary right after the meeting tonight to give you an opportunity to get it out. And so towards that end, if Will could send it around to our email boxes so that we have it in front of us. As a general comment about the letter, I would like to say that I would like to see, as it stands now, it stresses all of the points equally. In other words, it's not right that it's not in the outer boroughs and it's happening downtown and it's not in this area, and also it shouldn't be in the budget. In other words, all of those things are being stressed equally. And while I think it's fine that they should be in the letter, and even more appropriate to be in what I hope will be a very strong resolution tonight that doesn't mention a letter, but just mentions these circumstances, with the caveat that Russell expressed, that we won't step on the toes, that will include things that we know that the board has support in the past. To my mind, that is, and what I think the letter should affirm, is the lack of oversight. And we know that the board is opposed to oversight being taken from us. We've made that point many, many times. So I wouldn't be concerned about a strong letter about that or a strong resolution about that. But in the letter, I think we should make as many points as we can about the lack that they're taking oversight away from the community, that they're taking the ULIP away, they're taking, about the variances, that we will virtually hear nothing about anything, and these projects will just spring up. I think we really should push that in a very strong way at the beginning of the letter. And then if you want to mention that in addition, those other things, but I don't want them to think that, gee, it has equal balance and we might be okay with this if it weren't only below 110th Street and above Chambers. You know what I mean? I don't want them to get that feeling, or that we would be okay with that, with this, if they increase the percentage of affordable housing. No, we don't like the fact that it's out of our purview, and that's what they're doing. And I think we ought to list all the reasons for that, and we can back it up with all of our previous resolutions. So that's what I wanted to say in a general way. So now that I spoke, I can't make a strong resolution, but I hope someone else does, and making those points and not mentioning the letter. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. I see Alita and Rita. Oh, no, also Marco. I'm sorry, Marco, I did it to you again. Marco.
It's okay, thank you. One of the part that they should be involved in the letter is, since they are referring to the section, specifically the Article 7B, one of the biggest problems is the enforcement of the building code, which they refer right there in the multiple dwelling law. And right now, the Department of Building, they don't know what are they doing, because they are in transition. And even the simple applications, they are unable to process. So probably 50% or probably a little bit higher, they approve or they accept the process. Otherwise, this is a nightmare. DOV is not working properly. And even until they start working DOV with this to enforce, because this is the institution they're going to enforce, they have to be in compliance in all the regulations. They ask even rear yards of 20 feet. So the point is completely, they try to put it something that is not gonna work, or they expect Mayor de Blasio waive. But I think there is a conflict always between the governor and the mayor. So they never it's gonna happen. So my point is, it should be in the letter that the enforcement until the start this program, it will be already too late to produce anything if something is happening. Because if you read the multiple dwelling 7B, there are many regulations that probably won't be in compliance with the type B and C buildings. I know that most of them, they are very well built, but there are other regulations such as ventilation, illumination, rear yard to the windows, and most of the windows, they are not in compliance. So it's completely, that section, it will reinforce our strong opposition to that, because they were going to create luxury housing, but no according with the standard that the building code, the city code, and the state code won't be in compliance. So it's contradictory completely, this position. And I think we should enforce that part, that this is the problem in this short change of the multiple dwelling law. If you read the section 7B, the article 7B clearly describe exactly the fire resistance, compliance with the windows, class of construction, fire sprinkler systems. So it won't be in compliance completely. And on that part, we have to put in the resolution, because they're referring to the section 7B. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Alida and Rita.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to go back to the letter for a second, but not substantively. This is a citywide issue. And so I'm wondering if it makes sense to send the letter to everyone on the various committees at the legislature, in the Senate and the Assembly, and also to the various Assembly members and senators from around the city, because there may be community boards who have not yet looked at it. I don't want to step on anyone's toes, so I could see the answer not to, but the more people hear about or think about this from perspectives of the community board, the better. And then in terms of a resolution and drafting one, to just be wary of any open meeting laws, although we've discussed it, just to make sure that all of the points in the resolution have been discussed at the committee level. And I also have to leave the meeting, so I won't be able to vote, but I am, for what it's worth, fully in support of both a very strong letter and a resolution. And thank you for all of your time and attention.
Thank you, Alida. I think that it's a good point, and the about expanding a wider net or whatever. I think at least one of the other community boards, and I think it was 5, I saw their letter and their resolution, and they in fact cast a very large net in their copies, who was copied. And I think that's certainly a very good a model for us to follow here. Rita.
Just quickly, I agree with Michelle that there has to be, I'd like to see more, if you do this, you leave yourself open, yada, yada. But the one word in there, in the letter, that I would like to see stronger is the one that says inadequate. And I think inadequate is subjective. What's inadequate to you is not inadequate to me. I think it should be stronger, like untenable or
untenable. I like that.
Okay. Our problem in the state is when we have all the people who are not concerned with this in upstate voting.
Yes, and I think that's certainly something that we'll look at in the wee hours. I'm a little lost right now. We had a motion on the floor that Gail made for a resolution. Yes. Okay. It was seconded. I've already forgotten by whom. Now, is there Marco? Right. Thank you, Marco. And And thank you, Elaine. So the motion is now on the floor. Is there any further discussion on the motion for this joint committee to craft a resolution that will be presented to the full board, either the 10th or the 17th, depending, hopefully the 10th. I see Elaine.
Call the question.
Second.
Aha,
Second.
Barbara seconded. Okay, any opposition to that? No, love it. Okay. Now, Will, how do we vote on these things? Do we do if you raise your hand, you want to vote no, or do you want to do it that way?
Yeah, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is if you'll raise your hand if you're going to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause. I'll call your name, just read it into the record, and then afterwards we'll read out every board member who's still here so that you have a record into it. Michelle has her hand up.
Michelle.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because Gail's resolution was about a letter. So
it was a letter. I said that we needed a letter and a resolution.
So, but you didn't make the
I'll
point
make
of
that
what,
clear.
so if we can, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you could tell us like what you want in the resolution and not mention a letter.
Well, the bottom line of the resolution is that we oppose Article L 7, and that what I would like as another final determination is that we are opposed as this particular bill is written. We would like it removed from the budget, and also we can at that point in a resolution ask that our city elected officials who represent our community board also oppose, because we can be asking that they do that as part of the final determination. So
That's
we want
fine.
our electeds to oppose the bill. We want the bill to be removed. And we say at the very beginning that we're opposed to this completely. And then in the resolution itself, we point out all the reasons.
Right. So the
that have
same
been
whereas is, in other words, in the whereas clauses, the same things that we're
Things that we
using.
have
to
discussed
point
and
to
all the
discussing,
points
yes.
that have been made tonight.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yes,
So
that's
just
fine.
to make sure that the resolution is about that,
It should-
about the
yeah,
bill. Okay.
exactly.
Sounds good. Okay.
Okay, so
Could I-
Michelle's,
Could I add into the, therefore be it resolved that Community Board 8 demands the removal of that section from the,
I like that.
Why not be strong?
Yeah. Okay. Now let's see. All right, Elaine. No, Elaine is taking her hand down. So Adam.
I was just gonna vote, I'm in support of this, so if you're passing a resolution that is against it,
You are going to vote no. Yes,
That's-
correct.
I explained myself.
Okay. Give people another second or two. And all righty. So the motion carries, how many ever here to one?
So I'm going to read the names real quickly, Anthony,
yes.
so it's just into the record. So you have Anthony Cohn, Barbara Chalky, Elizabeth Ashby, Ed Hartzog, Greg Morris, Russell Squire, Adam Wald, Elaine Walsh, Elizabeth Rose, Gail Barron, Jane Parshall, Marco Tamayo, Michelle Birnbaum, Rebecca Lamort, Rita Popper, Sondrea Coleman, Sherry Weiner, and Valerie Mason. Did I miss anyone?
That's all I saw.
And Adam Wald is a no.
Correct.
Everyone else is in favor.
Excellent. Okay. Barbara and Ed and Greg, I apologize for hijacking your meeting this month.
No, we wanted, that's why we let you join us. I said that at the beginning of the meeting. You did you and Elaine did all the work on it, and Elizabeth.
Thank you. So since, I don't know about housing, but since we're meeting again in like a week, does anyone want to maybe move to adjourn?
Yeah, you can adjourn by one. Ed and Gary, can you stay on? Because we have to set the agenda for March's housing committee. So if Ed and Gary can stay on for a minute. Anybody else can stay on too if you want to listen.
I want to clarify one thing that I missed. I believe Kim Selway is actually a housing committee public
Yes.
member. So I missed that. She was also on the record of voting yes. She is still here.
Okay.
Yes, she is. Okay. So does anyone move to adjourn? Sherry, it appears Sherry has a second.
I understand.
Elaine and Ed. And so any opposed? Thank you. So I guess the formal meeting is now adjourned, and we leave the housing co-chairs to thrash out their agenda. Thank you. This was great. Thank you very much.
It worked out well. good.
Yes,
Okay.
terrific.
Ed and Gary, I think we had a few suggestions for next month's meeting, but
Barbara, just hang on 1 second while I stop streaming and get everything
Oh,
going.
okay.
I'm also going to send you guys to a breakout room just so you guys
oh, how